Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes.
Okay, so yes, we're continuing our discussion on devotional service in the three modes of nature, Saguna Bhakti, and then eventually we're going to go all the way to Nirguna Bhakti. And yesterday we were discussing devotional service in the mode of ignorance, and we were talking about how yes, we may not entirely be performing devotional service in the mode of ignorance, hopefully not, but there are tinges of this kind of mentality that enter into our daily functioning. And therefore, to talk about it, to be aware of it, to identify it is very, very important, because then we can understand how to address it appropriately. So we talked about the story of Daksha and Shiva. Shiva married who? Sati. Sati was the daughter of Daksha and Prashuti, someone of great royal order, but we talked about how Daksha, still having given away his daughter's hand to Shiva, wasn't entirely happy with Shiva. And later on, when Daksha entered into the sacrificial arena and everyone stood up except Brahma and Shiva, then Daksha just couldn't handle it. It was too much, and he began hurling all kinds of abusive language. There was cursing, there was counter-cursing. Later on, a demon was produced, and the demon finally decapitated Daksha. And later on, they went to Shiva for forgiveness. And indeed, Daksha received the head of a goat, and later on he received and understood all of his misgivings and how he had deviated from the proper etiquette with his language and conduct. And so in this way, we were hearing about how devotional service, which is executed by a person who harbors some envy, someone who is proud, someone who is violent. Remember, not just violent physically, but violent verbally and violent in their mentality, stopping the progressive journey of someone else. And someone who is angry, samrambhi. These are considered characteristics of the mode of darkness. And so we talked about Matsarya Bhakti and some of the positive mindsets that we can try to imbibe in our practice so that we can overcome such envy. Then we talked about dambam, or pride, and pride is always coming up, and therefore we talked about yes, how one must become humble. Isn't it like Srila Prabhupada, he had his very dear godbrother, O.B.L. Kapoor. And O.B.L. Kapoor, when Srila Prabhupada was a pharmacist, then he would regularly come. And one day he came to the pharmacy and he said, Abhay, at that time he was Abhay. He said, Abhay, I've come for some medicine. Yes, what medicine would you like? O.B.L. Kapoor, Adi Keshava, his initiated name was, he said, I want the medicine that you're taking. Srila Prabhupada said, what do you mean? I am totally fine. He said, no, I want the medicine that you're taking that makes you such an advanced Vaishnav. Can you give me that? Can you dispense that medicine to me today? And Srila Prabhupada, he said, oh, that medicine. Srila Prabhupada said, that medicine I have not been able to manufacture yet, but I do know the formula. So O.B.L. Kapoor said, okay, tell me the formula at least. He said, formula? The formula is an open secret, and one day I'll preach that formula all over the world. And then he mentioned to him, Tranadapi Sunichaina Tarodapi Sahishnana, to become more humble than a blade of grass. Yes, this is the formula for how to become a very advanced Vaishnav. Kaviraj Goswami says, Nama Suntre Ganti Para Kantha E Shlok. Take this verse, string it on the thread of the holy name and wear it constantly around your neck. To become humble, but more humble than a blade of grass. The acharyas say, why more humble than a blade of grass? Blade of grass is already humble, why more? Because they say when a grass, someone steps on it, then the grass after some time comes back up. So you have to be humble in such a way that even when you're humbled, the pride never comes back. You remain lower than the straw in the street. So in this way, overcoming pride is a major aspect. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told his devotees, his disciples in the final days, your advancement in devotional service will be directly proportionate to how closely you follow this verse in your life. You have to make this verse the guiding principle. In fact, in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there were many people doing Siddha Pranali. You understand? Siddha Pranali is when you go to a very advanced guru and they give you a Siddha Pranali mantra. And it's said that by this mantra, they reveal to you Ekadasa Bhav, the 11 characteristics of who you are in the spiritual world. And they give you a mantra. And if you chant this mantra, then you awaken your Swarup. So it was very esoteric and it was being misused. So one time someone came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and he said, can you give me also Siddha Pranali mantra by which I can awaken my form in the spiritual world? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he said, yes. There is one Siddha Pranali of the Gaudiyas, Trinadapi Sunichena. That is the Siddha Pranali. If you do that, chant in a humble state of mind, everything will come. So this pride must be rooted out. And then we talked about Himsam Bhakti, how there is a type of devotional service that we can do and a mentality we can harbor which is actually very violent towards others. Sometimes we know, sometimes we do it knowingly, oftentimes we do unknowingly. Therefore, even after, isn't it, after deity worship, that mantra is coming. Aparada sahasrani kriyante harinishamaya dashohamiti mamatva kshamashva madhusudana. Aparada sahasrani, thousands of offenses. Kriyantam harinishamaya, from morning to evening I'm not even aware sometimes. So therefore, to become aware, and in this way to become non-violent, truly non-violent. So we talked about these. So today we are moving on to devotional service in the mode of passion. Remember, the fourth canto has all the stories which signify this. And so the story signifying the mode of passion is Dhruva. Dhruva means determination. He was determined. Anyone in the mode of passion, you can't be in the mode of passion unless you're determined. This is like a hallmark of someone in passion. Therefore, Dhruva, one day, we know the very, very famous story. Dhruva was the son of Suniti. And Suniti was the co-wife of Suruchi, who also had a son. Her son's name was Uttam. And one day the king Uttanapad was on the throne and Uttam was playing with him. And Dhruva came, a young, innocent boy, naturally want to be with your father, playing with your father. So as he came there, then as he saw his father playing with Uttam, then he decided, let me also be there with my father. So he tried to climb the throne, and then we hear the famous Suruchi appeared and with a scolding voice pointed at him and said, how you try to step onto the throne? Do you think you're qualified to sit on your father's lap? I am the favorite queen of Uttanapad, and my son receives that privilege. And if you want that privilege, then you have to do austerities, you have to do sacrifice, you have to do some tapasya, and you have to earn the right. And maybe in this life, if you do that by going to the forest and engaging in penance, then maybe, just maybe, in your next life, you will take birth from my womb. And then, maybe, you have a chance. So that was so heavy. That was so heavy. But Dhruva you see, different people will respond in different ways according to their modes of nature. So Dhruva, at this point in his journey, had some mode of passion. So mode of passion means you don't back down, you take up the challenge, isn't it? A Kshatriya never gives up a challenge. Happy are to whom happy are the Kshatriyas to whom fighting opportunities come. So if you challenge a Kshatriya, they are up for it, they're ready. So Dhruva said, okay, if that's what you say, then we'll do it. But you know what? I'll do one better. I won't just take birth from your womb. I'm going to go and I'm going to do austerities. And I'm going to do austerities such that I gain a kingdom which is greater than my great-grandfather. Who is the great-grandfather? Well, Dhruva's father is Uttanapad. Uttanapad's father, his grandfather, is Svayam Bhagavan. And Svayam Bhagavanu's father is Brahma. So that is a lofty goal. That's a lofty ambition. That's high. But Dhruva was ready. So he said, okay, I walk away. I go to the forest. I'll do it. He didn't know where he would go, what he would do, how he would achieve it, what process he was supposed to perform, but he had determination and a lot of passion to fulfill his ambition. And on the journey, we know he meets Narad Muni. Of course, his own mother had confirmed, yes, you have to do this, you have to go. So his mother had confirmed, Sumiti, yeah, you go. And on the journey, he met Narad Muni. And Narad Muni said, where are you going? Narad Muni tried to discourage him. He said, first thing is, why are you taking it so seriously? It's just something someone said in the heat of the moment. She said it impulsively. You don't have to take it so seriously. These things happen. And anyway, who wants all of these things? Just move on. Dhruva said, no, I want it. Narad said, even if you want it, do you think you're going to be able to do it? The forest is not an easy place. It's dangerous, it's dark, it's full of deadly creatures. Do you really think you're going to be able to survive there? Dhruva said, don't try to discourage me, don't try to divert me, don't try to distract me. I'm determined, I'm Dhruva. I'm going to go in this way. It's interesting, sometimes this happens in life that people will come into your life who oppose you. And we think, why are they opposing me? Why is Krishna making it so difficult? Why is it my path, not much easier? But actually, Narad Muni came in order to instill a deeper determination in Dhruva. Because sometimes when someone opposes you, if you respond to it in the right way, it will make your desire deeper. It will make you more convinced about what you're actually meant to be doing. I remember when I joined someone once asked me a question, who in your life was the foundation of your success? I said, I'm not really successful, but they said, no, who is the foundation? Which personalities in your life? And I thought about many of my gurus and many of my spiritual mentors who helped me, and then finally I concluded it was my mom and dad. Because when I wanted to join the temple, it was fireworks. Sridhar Swami used to say, for most people, when they want to join the ashram, the big problem is mahapap, the many bad activities, so it's difficult to focus. But for Indians, it's ma-bap, mom and dad. So it was difficult. It was it was a long story, long history. Someone should write a book. But now when I look back, I realize all the opposition that my mother and father gave me helped me to think very deeply. Do I really want to do this? Why am I doing this? What will this actually achieve? And therefore that whole process of undergoing that opposition was so important to clarifying and solidifying my whatever small determination I developed. So when people come in your life and oppose you, don't worry. It's part of the journey. Take it in the right way and you'll become stronger. You'll become more determined. Prabhupada factually said, he said, everywhere I was being attacked. In Vrindavan, the Goswamis attacked me. In Mayapur, my godbrothers attacked me. In Mumbai, the municipality attacked me. And when I was in the West, the deprogrammers attacked me. Everyone was attacking me, but it just made me more stronger. So therefore, Narad Muni tested Dhruva. And Dhruva said, I want to go. Therefore, Narad Muni said, okay, then you go to Madhuvan. Madhuvan means the forest, the very sweet forest of honey. And therefore, he went to Madhuvan. You can go to that place today. I don't know how many of you have been. Very, very beautiful place. It's called Dhruvatil. And there, Dhruva situated himself in penance. And Narad Muni told him, there you do mantra jap, and you do austerity. You begin to control your mind and senses. And the mantra you focus on is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yes, Vasudevaya means Krishna, who is present everywhere. So then, if you chant that mantra, then Krishna, who is present everywhere, will finally appear before you. And so Dhruva went. He went to the forest, and standing on one leg with palms folded, he engaged, as the yogis do, in penance. This was difficult. He was a king. He was from a kingly background. He was used to opulence, not the forest. But there he was, determined. And it said, for the first month, he was only eating fruit every 3 days. But then in the next month, it became more intensified. By the second month, he was only eating leaves and grass every 6 days. But then in the third month, it became even more intensified. He was only drinking water every 9 days. By the fourth month, he thought, I got to up the game. Therefore, by the fourth month, he was only breathing air every 12 days. And by the fifth month, he was just subsisting on practically nothing. And his austerity was sucking the energy in the universe. His toe went into the universe. It had so much power that it said that it moved the orbit of the planets 2.5 inches out of its normal course. I mean, it was going to lead to cosmic destruction. And therefore the demigods were praying to the Lord, he's doing all of this, you do something, we're in acute danger. So Dhruva, like this was his determination. So this means determination. Determination means to increase intensity, you see. Our tendency is we start high and then we gradually become lower and lower. Like start with all this enthusiasm, and by the end of the day it's like, my God, just about hanging on to something. Dhruva was the complete opposite. He was increasing intensity. If you want to really find Krishna in this life, intensity has to be increasing, because akama sarvakamo va moksha kama udaridi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Bhagavatam says akama, if you have no desires, or sarvakama, even if you have every desire under the sun. Tivrena bhakti yogena, if you engage in devotional service, it will become purified, but not just bhakti yogena, Tivrena bhakti yogena, which Prabhupada says or translates as intense devotional service. So I often tell devotees, we have to find an intensity that suits our personality so that we can maintain a consistency that awakens our purity. So try to remember that mantra. You need to find an intensity that suits your personality so that you can maintain consistency that will awaken your purity. Without intensity in devotional service, nothing will happen. Casual devotional service will not bring anything. But Dhruva's devotional service was not casual, it was intense. And therefore the Lord arrived, Prishni Garbha arrived there, and immediately the Lord appeared in Dhruva's meditation, and as soon as the Lord disappeared from Dhruva's meditation, then his eyes opened, and as soon as his eyes opened, he saw the Lord right in front of him. And it said that this was the moment when all of his material desires disappeared. So we're practicing spiritual life and we're harboring many, many desires. This means mode of passion. So somehow or other we're aware of those desires, but we're worshipping the Lord with determination. And eventually what happens is when we receive the darshan, the grace, the vision of the Lord, then everything disappears. One devotee was giving an example that right now there is a wall of false ego which is separating us from Krishna. And what you do every day when you do your sadhana is like taking one brick out of that wall. And when you take one brick out of that wall on that day, you can get some glimpse of what's on the other side. And then the next day you return to your sadhana and you take one more brick out. And then the next day one more brick out. And if like this you continue with intensity and consistency, then eventually what happens is you take enough bricks out of the wall such that, boom, the wall just falls. And one day the Lord just appears, just like he appeared to Dhruva. So the Lord appeared, and then the famous scene of the Lord placing the conch shell on Dhruva's head. And the Dhruva, he wanted to glorify the Lord, but he never felt as though he had the speech, the words to express what was in his heart. So he was thinking, how will I offer prayers? I have no ability to express myself. And when the Lord placed the conch shell on his head, then he basically said it enlivened all of his senses. Yonta pravishta mama vacham imam prashuptam sanjivatyatya khilatma Tadadin Anyamscha hasta charana shravana tvagadin pranam namo bhagavate purushasya tubhyam. He said, when the Lord placed his conch shell on my head, then everything became enlivened. My hands, my legs, my ears, my life force, my intelligence, and most of all my words. The Lord empowered me to say things. And then Dhruva presents all these wonderful prayers. Sthana bilasi tapasi stitoham tvam praptavan deva muni triguyam kacham vichinvan api devya ratnam svamin kritarthosmi varam nayache. Sthana bilasi, I had an abhilas to get a great kingdom. Tapasi stitoham, and therefore I situated myself in penance. Tvam praptavan, and then I achieved you, I saw you. Deva Muni Draguyam, that even the Devas and the Munis never get to see. Kacham Vichinvan, now I'm thinking I was searching for broken glass. Apidivya Ratnam, but instead I have gained a wonderful jewel. Svamin Kirtartho Smivadam Nayache, I have no more material desires, Dhruva says. Therefore, material desires are compared to broken glass. Why broken glass? Because broken glass has two characteristics. The first characteristic of broken glass is that it's dangerous. Material desires are dangerous because they'll divert you from the real course of where you can actually find happiness. They'll hijack your consciousness, your attention, and your energy away from where you're actually supposed to be putting your attention and energy. And the other reason why material desires are compared to broken glass is because broken glass is absolutely useless. Other things, when they're broken, still you can salvage something from it, but broken glass, you can't do anything with it. And therefore material desires are completely useless in any shape, way or form of satisfying the heart. So he says, Kacham vichinvan, I was searching for all these material things. Now I realized in that process I gained the most valuable thing, a Divya Ratnam, a transcendental jewel of your vision. So the Lord said, now I have to give you something. He said, no, I don't want anything more. The Lord said, no, I have to give you because you asked. So the Lord said, now you rule for 36,000 years. I'm also giving you a planet, Dhruva Loka, the pole star. And eventually, after everything is said and done, you will return back home, back to Godhead. And in this way, Dhruva achieves his desire. All's well that ends well. Dhruva started with a material desire. but he ended up with pure devotional service. However, the Acharyas still say we should learn from Dhruva the drawbacks and the characteristics of someone who is practicing in the mode of passion. And therefore, the verse is given. Can repeat after me. Vishayana visandhaya Yasha Aishvaryam eva va Archada varchayed yoma Pritag bhava sarajasaha. So the three important words in this verse are Vishayan, Yasha and Aishvaryam. The worship of the deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, Vishayan, fame, Yasha, and opulence, Aishvaryam, is devotion in the mode of passion. In other words, the Acharyas are telling us that we have to be very, very careful of these three things. Dhruva, he basically was harboring desires for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence. Now you may say, but all is well. He was purified of it, by devotional service. So why do we have to worry? We should just carry on. But Dhruva had a certain intensity. Yeah, are you ready to go leave everything, go to Madhuvan, and then every 12 days to survive on air? His intensity was such that even though he did not specifically try to root out his material desires, the intensity of his devotion was such that immediately those desires were rooted out. You see, if your intensity is this high, even if your attention on the impurity is this low, still it will be enough to manifest pure devotional service. But if your intensity is not very high, then you have to put attention on trying to root out some of the deviant desires that are there. The other reason why Dhruva was successful, even though it doesn't seem as though he specifically tried to root out his material desire, the other reason is because he was given a very specific instruction by his spiritual master. Narada Muni told him, just go and meditate on this mantra. And because he followed that perfectly, Srila Prabhupada, if you look in Vedabase and you do a search for the term secret of success, Prabhupada says the same thing every single time. The secret of success is to follow the orders of the spiritual master with one's life and soul. So because he did that, you see, it's like this. If you look at the different characters, they represent different things. So for example, let me just do one thing. Yeah, so even though Dhruva wasn't specifically trying to root this out, because his intensity was so high, it didn't matter. But for us it does matter because we don't have that kind of intensity. Dhruva actually teaches us something very, very interesting. Uttanapad represents attachment. This is a very interesting point. Uttanapad represents attachment because he loved Suruchi more than Suniti. He loved Uttam more than Dhruva. He was seeing distinction. He had attachment for one more than the other. That was his weak point. Suruchi, her weak point was that she had pride and envy. And therefore, when she saw Dhruva on the lap of, or trying to get on the lap of Uttanapad, then immediately she lashed out at him. Dhruva, his weak point was that he had ambition, material ambition. And so each of them, if you look at it, they all had a weakness. But there was one individual who changed everything. Does anyone know who that was? Suniti. Suniti was actually the one who changed everything. Suniti literally means good advice or good direction or good guidance. And Suniti, she was the emblem of devotion. And because she told Dhruva, yes, anything you want, if you go to the Lord, then the Lord will purify it. And because she gave that devotional instruction to Dhruva and he followed it after also getting the reaffirmation from Narad Muni, then what happened is Dhruva became purified. His ambition was basically removed and he developed pure devotional sentiments. But not just that, when he went back to the kingdom, Uttanapad also changed his mood completely. When Dhruva came back, he embraced Dhruva on an equal level as his other son Uttam. Not just that, but he also saw Suniti and Suruchi on the same level. In other words, his attachment, his separatist vision of them also disappeared. And also it said that when Dhruva came back, even Suruchi became transformed. Even she began to love Dhruva as much as her own son Uttam, and therefore the pride and envy was removed. And therefore is mentioned by the teachers that devotion has the power to remove all of these things automatically. Therefore one may say, but what's the need? But therefore I'm coming back to the same point. Dhruva had an intensity that allowed him to then transform these things without any extra effort to look at these things separately. But for us, because we don't have that kind of intensity, therefore we have to focus on it. Therefore Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam taya parita chetasham vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho nuvidiyate. You will never gain that kind of intensity that Dhruva has if you're attached to bhoga and aishwarya, enjoyment and opulence. And so one of the first things that we're learning when we're looking at devotional service in the mode of passion is that the first thing we have to be very careful of is Vishaya. When we're practicing devotional service, then so many side benefits, so many opportunities for sense gratification may arise. But we should not get distracted by those side benefits. In the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, we're hearing about Gopakumar, and he's trying to go and find out the topmost planet. And he goes through many, many planets, but he never gets distracted. He says, this is nice, but I want to go higher, I want to go higher, I want to go higher. So spiritual life is like this. As you practice and pick up spiritual life, as you go along, many, many opportunities for side benefits may come about. But we should not become diverted. We should not give in. We should not consider that to be the success of spiritual life. We should say, this is just a side benefit. Let me not take it seriously. Let me continue on and get the real thing. Isn't it? Like just like when you're in Loy Bazaar and you're bargaining in one of the shops. Then you know the first price you never accept. Do you accept the second price? No. Not even the third, the fourth or the fifth. After the fifth price has been given, you have to start walking out the shop saying, no, too high, too high. And then after that, the real price will come, and then you say, okay, then we'll take it. So spiritual life is like that. Many, many attractive prices or attractive deals may come along the way, but we must not get distracted by that. This is one of the main things. In Anishtita Bhakti, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining unsteady devotional service. One of the obstacles that comes is Taranga Rangini, which means playing in the waves of devotional service. So sometimes when you practice devotional service, it's like playing in the waves of the different benefits that come along, not realizing that there's something we got to progress towards which is much beyond this. Therefore Krishna even says, isn't it? Dukeshvanudvigna manaha sukheshu vigataspraha vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dhir muniruchyate. Krishna says one should tolerate distress and one should also tolerate happiness. When I first read that, I remember first reading the Bhagavad Gita, I was like, tolerate distress, I get that. Why in the world do you have to tolerate happiness? Tolerate happiness? Happiness is good. Happiness is what we're looking for. But here Krishna is saying, tolerate material happiness, material benefits. Don't get enamored by them. Don't get distracted by them. They are not the real thing. As we practice devotional service, everything will come. And not only should we not get distracted, but whatever things come, we should invest that back into devotional service. Once my spiritual master, he said to me, spiritual life will only work if you give more than you get. So he says, in your life, if you get more, you have to give more. He said, if you get more respect, then you have to give more sacrifice. If you get more opportunity, you have to give more service. If you get more power, then you have to give more humble service to others. In other words, you have to always give more than you get, and therefore using everything for Krishna. And another way in which we can avoid Vishaya and Bhakti, or the tendency to practice devotional service but in the spirit of sense gratification, because it's amazing. In spiritual life, we can be doing the most exalted activities and be completely self-centered. We can be leading a kirtan, the most exalted activity, and we can be thinking about ourselves. We can be worshipping the deity right in front of Krishna and be thinking about ourselves. We can be giving a lecture, delivering the Bhagavat, Shabda Brahman, but we can be just thinking about ourselves. And therefore, it's very, very easy to become self-centered, even in doing devotional service. Another thing we can do to avoid this tendency to enjoy devotional service in a material way is that we do service that's required. We don't just do the service that we enjoy or the service that inspires us, but we do the service that is required, the service that the Vaishnavas ask us to do. Because there's a sense of sacrifice, there's a sense in that where you go beyond what's immediately enjoyable to me, but I'm doing this in a spirit of service. So these are helpful meditations for us to have to avoid the pitfall of rendering devotional service but getting into the spirit of Vishaya or sense enjoyment. Later in this verse, the Bhagavatam is telling us that another difficulty or obstacle in the mode of passion is the desire for fame. Everyone in this world is actually insecure, because originally we're all with Krishna. Om Purnam Adapurnamidam Purna Purnam Udachyate Purnasyam Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Krishna is complete, and everyone emanating from Krishna is also a complete unit. But right now, because we've forgotten our relationship with Krishna, we've forgotten our completeness, and therefore we feel incomplete because we're separated from Krishna. And because we feel incomplete, everyone in this world is insecure to a lesser or greater degree. And because everyone is insecure, then we seek appreciation, we seek acceptance, we seek acknowledgement, we seek attention. And therefore, the tendency to practice devotional service and look for fame or acknowledgement, attention, is very, very strong. But that is not the purpose of devotional service. The purpose of devotional service is to bring attention and fame to Krishna. And therefore we have to also be very, very careful of this. The devotee is funny. One of the names of fame in Sanskrit or praise in Sanskrit is known as stuti, isn't it? But stuti has a double meaning. Stuti also means an unmarried girl. So one commentator, he says there is a link here. Because if there is an unmarried girl and someone is very, very interested in her, then she will not be interested. But if there's an unmarried girl and the person is not interested, they kind of look away, or they just, then she becomes more interested. So they say fame is the same. When someone doesn't want fame, when fame is like the last thing they want, when they run away from that desire to have adoration and distinction, then somehow or other for that devotee fame follows them. But when they're desirous, when they really want it, when they're searching for it, when they're endeavoring hard for it, then actually it never comes in a sustainable way. And so the devotees of Krishna are never advertising their devotion. No, like Gopal Bhatta Goswami, when Kaviraj Goswami was writing Chaitanya Charitamrita, he said, I'll give you all the information on one condition: don't put my name in the book. I don't want to be highlighted. I don't want any attention to be drawn to me. So sometimes for the purpose of service, we do have to stand up. We have to draw attention to ourselves, but we must be very, very careful, because this desire for fame is so strong. When it does come, again, we have to use it for service, and we have to be very careful. He said, like, fame is like a hot potato. When you get it, just pass it on. And just keep passing it up to your teachers, to the people who made you who you are today. Sanatana Goswami, he looks at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he says, I'm made of your mercy. I'm not made of anything else. I'm simply made of your mercy. And so whenever any fame or recognition comes, then we keep passing it up, realizing it's not me. I'm nothing. I'm just a product of all those great souls that invested in me. So like this, we must be very, very careful of fame. There's also a Vrindavan legend. I've never seen it with my own eyes, but they say like this, that one of the first temples in Vrindavan was the Madan Mohan temple. Many of you must have been. So you know the story of Madan Mohan, that Sanatana Goswami was worshipping Madan Mohan, and he was worshipping very, very simple. There was no temple, there was nothing. And at one point there was the salt merchant, Mr. Kapoor, and his ship got stuck at sea, and so he was told, if you pray to Madan Mohan, then it will be released. So finally he did that. The ship was released. He earned very great sum of money. And then he came back to Sanatana Goswami and he said, I want to build a temple for Madan Mohan. So now you see that beautiful temple built by Kapoor. But it's said, according to Vrindavan legend, that when they wanted to, after he built that temple, then they said to Kapoor that we want to honor you. So we want to, you want to, make an acknowledgement, an inscription that you have, by your generous donation. So he said, no, I don't want any fame. I don't want any attention. I don't want to be recognized. I don't want... They insisted. They said, no. We want to appreciate you, at least in some small way. So then he said, okay, then make a deity of me. It's like, wow. It's like from one extreme to another. He said, make a deity. He said, okay. Small deity, Mr. Kapoor. And then he said, go to the back of the temple, there is one pipe there. And you place the murti under the pipe. Because in India, when they wash the temple room, isn't it? They throw the bucket, the water with the broom, they broom it into the gutter, and then all the water comes down through the pipe. And he said, I want the abhishek. I want the abhishek of the bhaktas. Bhakta pada duliyar, bhakta pada jal, bhakta bhukta avashesha, tina mahabal. That this is powerful. If I get the mercy of the Vaishnavas, then that is the ultimate reward. So again, we must be very, very careful. Fame, very, very intoxicating, very, very distracting. So Bhagavatam is reminding us, be careful of this. And Aishwaryam Bhakti. Dhruva wanted opulence, he wanted a kingdom, he wanted control. So this is also very, very strong within us. That when we're performing devotional service, we achieve things, we hang on to those things, we identify with those things. But those things are not us, that they don't define us. One of the biggest problems in the world is that people measure other people's devotion through external achievements. But external success does not equal inner purity. Someone may be successful externally with many results, and another person maybe not. Krishna has a different plan for everyone. There was one disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was an expert astrologer. So one day this sannyasi disciple had done his chart. Anyway, so it was lying there, the chart, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur walked by, and he just glanced at the chart. And immediately he just glanced, he could understand the planets, the configurations, everything. And he said, in this life, your purity is unparalleled. Your devotion to Krishna is unparalleled. But he said, in this life, you won't have much influence because your planetary systems are aligned in this way. There's a malefic influence. And so he said, it's not a sign of your purity, it's just that some people will have more impact than others, some people will have more results than others, some people will make a so-called bigger impact than others. But that doesn't define one's purity. Purity is defined, it's not how necessarily just how many people you bring to Krishna's lotus feet that defines you. But it's how attached you are to Krishna's lotus feet that ultimately defines you. And so, like this, we have to be careful that we don't define ourselves by opulence, by achievements, by all of these different things. One way we can become detached from the opulence and the facilities that come is to keep growing in service, to keep moving, to not achieve something and then just be comfortable within that, but to achieve something for Krishna and then share that with the others so that they can develop it further and move on to another service. Srila Prabhupada was always moving on to bigger projects, thinking bigger. Keep growing in your service, never become comfortable and never just stay enjoying whatever has been achieved by Krishna's mercy thus far. And ultimately, all of these things, how do we overcome it? Because even Prahlad, he was offered any benediction by Nrsingadev. And Prahlad prayed for a very special benediction. Yadi dasyasi me kaman varamscha varadarshava kamanam ridya samroham bhavatastu vrine varam. He says, if you really want to give me a benediction, then, dear Lord, I pray to you that all the material desires in my heart be extinguished. So we have to constantly pray for that may my material desires be removed. So again, here today we're remembering Dhruva. Dhruva harbored these things. He wanted fame, he wanted control, he wanted opulence, he wanted to enjoy. Somehow or other, because he was determined, his intensity of devotional service meant all of those became purified. However, for us who don't have that intensity, we have to be very, very careful. And we have to actively try to ensure that these things don't divert us, Aishwarya, Yasha, and Vishaya. And in this way, we can rise beyond devotional service in the mode of passion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So if there's any questions or comments, yes, Yaravendra Prabhu. Is there a mic for Prabhu?
So my question is that, I'm taking a step back. You said that you shouldn't say anything which hurts other people who brings down their fame. So let's just say in a scenario that a devotee has said something to you which hurts you, and if you reveal it, then that devotee goes down in the other person's eyes who you're revealing it to. But if you don't reveal it, then internally, let's say you crumble, right? Because you're not letting out your concerns.
Yeah.
So sometimes between, let's say, a husband and a wife, or between someone and their best friend, right? There is this intimacy that they share, whatever they think about. So in devotional service, right, what is the thing to do when you are very distressed about something that's happened? It will make a devotee look bad. You want to share it with someone who's close to you, but then at the same time you're worried that will make that person look bad.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I would say there are a couple of considerations here. First thing is, when there is something hurtful that we want to share with someone, the reason we're sharing it is twofold. One, so that we can express our heart, but two, so that we can receive the mature input and response of someone to help us elevate our vision and deal with it. So there's a good chance that if the person you're sharing it with is not able to see also that person's perfection in a higher way, that separate the disease from the diseased and not hold it against that person, if they're not able to have that vision, then they also won't be the ones equipped to give you the response that will help you to elevate your vision. So generally, when we're going to share something like that with someone, we try to find someone who not only we trust, but who we know has the advancement, number one, to be able to digest it in a mature way, and number two, has the advancement to be able to then respond to us in a way that will help us to digest it and elevate our vision. And therefore, who we relay things to is also very, very important. But sometimes you may say such a person may not be available, and still you need to express yourself. So then what we do is, when we exchange with another Vaishnav, then what we try to do is, together with the maturity of both of our viewpoints, we try to see it through the eyes of Shastra. So it's not just that now I'm just venting here, but we're going to share this, and together through our exchange, we're going to try and bring in Shastra and try to elevate our vision of how to digest this in an appropriate way. And so, thanks for raising this point, because we need to share what's going on and what is hurting us. We can't just keep it within. But at the same time, we have to do it in an appropriate way so it doesn't create further offense or complication or discord within relationships. Yeah, thank you. Nice point. Yes, at the back there.
Hare Krishna. I have two questions, if
Yes.
that's okay.
Sure.
So the first question is, you mentioned Dhruva's intensity was able to overcome the inherent desire for acquiring a kingdom. But we can see from this situation that this is the great-grandson of Brahma, Svayam Bhagavan, the first created being. And so these are people who are very, very elevated, have a very, very conducive environment. I'm assuming it's not as bad as Kali Yuga back then, better health, better environment. And still, they had to go through such an intense situation like you described early on, yeah? And he had to do so much intensity at that time. So for us who are maybe billions, generations down the line from Lord Brahma eventually, how much intensity do we have to achieve? Because our situation is much worse, and we're in a more, we have maybe multiple, suruchis around us, and even our mind can behave in that way. So what is the level of intensity for us, and what would be the right bar for that?
Therefore, Paramakaruna Pahudui Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra Sabayavatar Sadasiromani Kevalayananda Kanda. We don't have that kind of capacity. We don't have that kind of intensity. Krishna knows. Therefore, Krishna comes Paramakaruna in his most merciful form. Sabayavatar, and of all the avatars, Sadasiromani, they are the crest jewel. Why? Because Kevala Ananda Kanda, they give a process which is achievable, a process which we can absorb ourselves in, a process which is something we can get intense about, because Ananda Kanda is joyful. So Krishna knows in this age we don't have capacity for tapasya. Therefore we are given a process which is enjoyable, which is joyful, and then we try to get intense about being joyful. So become intensely joyful. If you can't become intense, become intensely joyful in the Sankirtan movement. So that is our hope. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is our hope. Jadi Gaura na hoite, if Gauranga had not come, what would be the hope for everyone in Kali Yuga? So therefore everything is becoming, you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu means highest to lowest. Mahaprabhu comes from the highest planet down to the lowest planet in the lowest time. Is highest to lowest because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the highest personality, Purna Purushottam Bhagavan, but he comes in the lowest position as Das, Das, Anudas. And it's also highest to lowest Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he takes the highest thing and he gives it to the people with the lowest qualification. So therefore Mahaprabhu is bridging the gap. There is a gap, but Mahaprabhu is bridging the gap because he is bringing the high and making it available to the low, and he's making up the rest. Yoga Kshema Vahami Aham. So in that way we can have hope. Second question? No.
Yeah. The second question, you mentioned that the external, perspective or qualities or achievements of someone is not directly proportionate or linkable to that person's devotional service. So I have a question around the theme of sannyas. So basically, we assume, at least in this context, that sannyasi is given that respect, that honor, that position in society because we're considering them to be more advanced, to be more serious about their devotional service. But yet, as ISKCON, as an institution, we have certain parameters that sannyasis have to achieve, and that's an external way that, okay, now one can become a sannyas. So it feels a little bit contradictory to that statement because we're assuming that their devotion is the basis upon which we're giving that respect, we're taking guidance from them, but then there's also this kind of parameter of they have to achieve X, Y, Z, travel to these many countries, do all these forms, X, Y, Z courses, recommendation method.
So in one sense we're saying it's not external, but in another sense in our society we have the culture of giving respect for external things. Good point. Basically there is external respect given according to Varnashram, and then there is the internal respect which is the result of pure devotion. According to Varnashram, on an external level we offer respect not just for sannyas, for many things. If someone is in a sannyas ashram, there's respect. If someone is a teacher, there's respect. If someone is an elder, there's respect. If someone holds a position of responsibility, there's respect. That's according to Varnashram, because for social organization there needs to be culture, and therefore there needs to be parameters of how we interact. But the ultimate respect is none of those things. The ultimate respect is who has devotion. Because even Mahaprabhu says, Naham Vipro Nacha Narapatir Napi Vaisho Nasudro Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayor Das Das Anudas. I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not a man, woman, I'm not any of these things. Just a servant of the servant. Therefore, actually, if you see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's sannyasis, is very interesting in Gaudiya Math. If you look at the sannyasis, they wear saffron dress, but then what's the color of their bead bag? If you notice, it's always white. Why? Because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying, we take on all these positions for the purpose of interacting with the world and doing service. But when it comes to Harinam, when we come in front of Krishna, we don't come as a sannyasi, we come as a beggar. Because all of that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. When you come in front of the holy name, you come as a beggar. You know, Krishna, I am a sannyasi, so what? It doesn't mean anything. The gopis were the greatest sannyasis, and they didn't have saffron dress. Therefore, anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti ya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. Sannyasi does not mean external. Anashrita karma phalam, one who has completely dedicated everything, all the karma phala, all the fruits of their activities, sa sannyasi, they are a sannyasi. Not just a stick. Stick's good though. When you've got a bad back and you need to get up from an obeisance. It's not enough. So yes, none of these things. But externally, for the purpose of interacting, okay, some respect. But Srila Prabhupada, when his first disciples went to America, went to London, his Grihastha disciples, and he glorified them. He said, you're greater because you could do what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's sannyasi disciples could not do. You did it. Yeah. Whoever gets empowered. So yes, there are these different considerations. But the ultimate thing is who has love. Ultimately, sannyas is not an achievement. It's not an achievement. Sannyas is just an opportunity. That's all it is. It's just an opportunity to do more service. That's all it is. So if someone thinks that sannyas or achieving a leadership position or achieving a certain number of years in the movement, that this is the achievement, no, that's just an opportunity. Now what you're going to do in that position to serve, that's the real thing. Yes, bro. I don't, okay, last question maybe.
There's one online.
Oh, there's online, yes, we said. Okay. Shall I do the online one?
Yeah, go ahead.
And then we'll come to Prabhu, yeah? Can someone say it? Because I can't say it.
Okay,
You can just say it, I repeat it.
yeah. So the question is from the Robert. Is it how does one maintain bhakti? Sorry, this no is for yesterday today. Okay, today's question is, how does one forgive and forget? Forgiving is easy, but forgetting is hard. How does one forgive and forget?
How does one forgive and forget? I would say we should forgive but not forget. Because forget means that you lose your discrimination. Like say for example someone is harming you, then you forgive them in the sense that internally you don't hold any grudge against them. You realize they have their own insecurities, they have their own weaknesses, they have their own difficulties. But although in your heart you forgive them, on a practical level you redefine your relationship with that person and you may decide to keep a distance. So you should not lose your intelligence. But at the same time you should not hold bitterness in your heart. Otherwise, if we're just going to hold so much bitterness against everyone who does something to us, that's all we're going to be thinking about all day. So I often say this, the goal of life is not to remember all the terrible things that someone did to you. The goal of life is to remember all the wonderful things that Krishna is doing for you every day. But if your consciousness is hijacked by all this negativity and bitterness and anger and resentment towards others, how you will be able to remember Krishna's grace in your life? So forgive in your heart. And forget means don't constantly let it be on your mind, but at the same time take practical precaution to protect yourself so that you don't have to face a further kind of challenge to your consciousness. Yeah, forgiveness is a big topic. I could say many more things on forgiveness, but forgive me. Okay, Prabhu, last question then, and then we'll wrap up. So if someone needs to leave also, please don't feel.
From the verse on the projector, it's about fame and opulence.
Yes.
So generally speaking, people will be attracted to something that is famous and opulent. So is that okay? Like, it's going to be very famous and opulent to attract people for preaching purposes?
Yeah, we use these things. That's yukta vairagya. We use these things for Krishna. Right? What does Rupa Goswami say? Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandha vastuna mumukshubi parityago falgu vairagya muchyate. Everything has a hari sambandha. Everything can be used for Krishna. Therefore, if you give it up without understanding the hari sambandha, this is considered falgu vairagya, a lower type of renunciation. So therefore, such things can be used for Krishna. Even it may seem as though a devotee is trying to make themselves famous for Krishna. A devotee is trying to create opulence for Krishna, to attract others to Krishna. But what we must realize is that Shurasya dhara nishitam duratyaya is a razor's edge. You have to be very careful. Because yukta vairagya means you're engaging with the world. And at any moment you could try to start enjoying those things. So therefore, anyone who's doing such a thing, they must also have a very, very strong internal life. They must be very, very introspective and observant about where they're at and how they're using those things. Otherwise, in the name of using it for Krishna, then we can again become implicated. So we have to be careful. See, Abhimanyu, he could get into the chakra vyuha, isn't it? He could get in and he could fight. But what he didn't know was how to get out alive. So we can go and we can do so many things, using so many things, but then we must know the art of how to do it without becoming compromised. So Srila Prabhupada, he was expert. He knew how to do it. So yes, we use such things also, but the point is, in the devotional service in the mode of passion means that we're also, some of that is for us also, and that's dangerous. Hope that helps. Okay, thank you so much, and tomorrow will be the final day. We'll discuss devotional service in the mode of goodness, and also what is beyond devotional service in the mode of goodness. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.